Hi, my name is Raphael Sparge.
And I'm Greg Lemley.
And welcome to another episode of Inside the Arthouse. Today we get to speak to director Alex Steyermark, Cheri Lovedog, whose story this is, and co-writer Robin Whitehouse. Pray for Rock and Roll. It's a story of a band that struggles playing gigs up and down the Sunset Strip. And then when the break finally comes, their lives are turned upside down. This is a gritty and powerful portrayal of an all-women's rock band and a film very much ahead of its time, establishing itself as an LGBTQ touchstone and a rock and roll cult classic. Gina Gershon performs and sings all of the film's songs herself and backed by an all-star band of women alt rockers. Stay tuned for our next episode of Inside the Arthouse. So tell me what the genesis of this was. I mean, it started as a story. Is that right?
A bunch of stories. So here's what happened. You tell them how I met you, because it's a great story.
I was visiting my mother in Santa Cruz on her 50th birthday, and she said, let's go get matching tattoos. So we went down to Lovedog Tattoo, and we were getting these tattoos, and she started telling me about her days in Los Angeles, being a rocker, and she's a musician and a songwriter and all of her crazy stories, and that she's written about them. And I'm sure my mom probably said, my daughter's a writer. So she...
the way moms do.
Yeah. So I said, well, send me your stuff. And she did. And I thought it was great. And I thought there's definitely a play here. And she already has all of this music. So I said, come to New York. And I had a production company, Fat Chance Productions. Back then, it was just like a 50-seat theater in the Village. And we just put on plays for cheap.
Wow. When you could do that.
Yeah.
Cheap is actually a word that still existed in New York, right?
Yeah.
Can we get a time frame on this?
Yes, this was 2000. And so she came and we put together, we found some musicians who could act, and we rehearsed the songs and we wrote the script, and she got up on stage and performed it. And
so you played one of the parts in the play as well?
I did it. I did. Well, I didn't. I wasn't going to play. She was directing. I was writing. We're working together on the play, right?
Yeah.
And when I love theater, because they can't change a word without you, and that is the beauty of theater. When I went to film, one of the stories. So, anyways, and the girl that we picked for the lead, which I never wanted, just to be clear, the girl they picked to play the lead was just awful.
Yeah.
She was just bad, just in every way. She just wasn't correct for it. And it was like a week before opening or something like that.
Oh, the Alanis Morissette?
Yeah, lady. Well, Anyway, so all the people, so we picked this girl, and she was awful. I said, I'm not doing it. I told Robin, I said, I'm not doing the play. We're not doing it. I can't.
Is that bad?
Oh,
right.
my God. I can't be. Yeah, I heard that. I was just like, I was not proud of it. And I wasn't ever looking to be a playwright or a screenwriter. I was happy being a story writer, So I told her I'm not going to do it. She goes, well, you have to do it. I'm like, I don't know what to do on it. She goes, just act like yourself. You can do it. And I was like, okay. So we rehearsed a few times, and we did it. It was really fun, but it wasn't a challenge, of course. I was basically playing myself. So that was fun. Mm-hmm. And I liked it. I never really acted before, and I never... worked with the director before, or wrote a play before, and kind of all of it. Baptism by Fire here in New York with her.
So I mean, these are your stories,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Are they your stories, or are they stories that you've heard from other people in the
actual movie stories?
I don't need to know specifically, but I'm just sort of trying to understand.
No. So the movie stories are, a lot of them happen specifically to me, and others happen specifically to people in my close friend group. So we were all affected by it. I couldn't tell, 15 people's stories. So we kind of assigned the different stories to different people based on their characters. Mm-hmm. But every single thing that happened is true. They just changed, like the way that... Lori Petty, Faith, dies in the movie is not what happens in the play. Mm-hmm. So they made some different choices in that respect, but they Alex stayed really, really true to the story,
right?
Which was amazing.
And she is Jackie. I mean, personality-wise, all that whole stage Jackie and film Jackie is her.
So you had a punk rock band here in LA.
I did back, like for 15, 20 years in Hollywood, called Lovedog, and we opened for, time-wise, it was the Guns N' Roses, Jane's Addiction, everybody's getting signed. Everybody who ever got signed, we opened for them. but we never got signed. So we were like
That
close, but we did get signed by, I don't know if this could be in there. There's a Triple Z record company in the movie, and we were signed by a very similar sounding one, and they were awful. And like the peeing on the contract.
Right.
Okay,
That's that guy,
I
right?
didn't do that. My friend Inger Lore in the Nymphs, she was signed with like A&M or some big company, and they sent the contract, and she went in there and she put the contract on the desk of the guy and got on the desk and peed on it. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Whoa.
That's brilliant. So that was her, so some of it's like that, cool things that people have done. I think it's a great story. And I would have never even thought of that but Inger did it. And I'm like, you know what?
I like that.
Right? Because
Yeah.
you just pull from your experiences. So that was cool. Yeah.
Well, you've captured, obviously, something. You captured a time in this, and you captured a Los Angeles that I don't know that exists anymore.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about, a band living in, Silver Lake or Eagle Rock. And it's like, well, that's a time capsule. I mean, it was almost a time capsule when the movie came out, but it's definitely like.
And there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was none of that. Oh, what's our internet? I don't know.
Yes, when the movie came out, there was internet. I mean, the movie came out in 2003. And
So there was a little bit, but
it was flyers. You had to put up
We're
flyers.
still doing flyers.
Yeah.
Right.
Kinko's, 3 a.m., because your friend worked there, hook you up with a deal, and then you go fly around the cars, parking lots with the. Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's how we did it,
Yeah.
That's how we did it.
And Robin, so then the play opened.
It was the Fringe Festival in New York, which is in the summer, and all of these little black box spaces are full. And so I went to the guy who owned CBGB, who was very close to shutting the place down shortly afterward.
Yeah.
But I said, let us just build the set, do the play, strike the set before the first sound check, and I promise we'll be out here. And he's like, okay, but make everybody who comes have at least 2 drinks. So I said, all right. So we put it up at CBGB, which was the perfect place because
it was amazing, right?
It required no set dressing whatsoever. It did really well. And then somebody came in and said, you should write the screenplay. That
was Mr. D, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what did you? How did you greet that news? You was a story. Now you're a play. Now you're actually running at CBGB.
Well,
so now,
I love doing the play, but I've lived here long enough to be concerned about the movie industry when I lived here. So I know it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to get a contract and I'm going to get paid like how you should, right? So I was a little hesitant about it a little bit, and I think she was a little bit. One thing, we didn't know how to write a screenplay. Okay, so we had, but
I was a playwright,
right? But when they talked about it, I was really apprehensive. And then he said that Alex Steyermark was going to direct it, and he was attached to Hedwig, and I'm in love with Hedwig. So I was like, okay, all right, well, this sounds good to me. So we, and I signed 10 contracts. I swear to God, we need to change this now. It's crazy, but so that was fine. Then I had a meeting with Alex, and I was nervous about. Because of how the play went, that girl was not very good. And I'm like, Alex, I don't know. I feel like maybe I feel like I should do it. I don't know if maybe I could do it. And he goes, well, I've been talking to Gina Gershon. I'm like, oh, no, yeah. We're good on that,
Yeah.
And then I really relaxed with him. The creative part, the business part, but the actual filming, the actors doing it was amazing. Fun times.
And Dre was my friend from before. Dre was in my first play before she was ever in anything or Sopranos. And so she's just amazing. So it was really fun to bring her in.
Yeah.
So you were writing the script, obviously, and then you were also sort of in these early conversations. Then, I mean, how much of the script had you done prior to Alex coming in, or in terms of even you talking about casting, I guess?
I probably did I have a rough draft for you? Okay, I had a rough draft at that point then, because it didn't change. The stories didn't change from the play. But, when you do film, you could do so much more. And you could bring in more characters to tell the story better and different and everything like that. So that opened us up a lot. But having never shot films, it'd be like, well, how about this or that? And I'd be like, yeah, because I'm not going to tell somebody who knows what they're doing. No, I don't like that. You know what I mean? So the choices that were made in the production and pre-production were all fine by me. I mean, it all made perfect sense. But it was already there. The whole story was already there. We didn't add anything. We didn't take anything out. Same story, just told in a much cooler visual way.
Right.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And Robin, how involved were you then in the process of from I mean, obviously writing the script, but then in actually in terms of the production of this?
Well, I was there on the set, in the alleys, sitting on an egg crate.
You talking about a CBGB?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just, I was there as much as I possibly could be. It was interesting to me because that was my first screenplay and had a lot of experience since then. But before that, playwrights, you don't improvise on plays. And that's how I was taught. And so when we were sitting there in the alley, like, what are they saying?
This is not when you're shooting the film.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
What are they saying? That's not in the script. And it was like, I was confused. But then I get, it's like, this is, it turned out better that way because that was very much, Gina and these women were able to, make it very authentic by just riffing. And it was great. But it was all trial by fire. Yeah. But I mean, I had studied writing before. It was just this suddenly making a movie was
oh my
different.
God.
Yeah. You guys meeting to the film being in movie theaters is 3 years?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
It was crazy,
You spent
right?
3 years in development with notes going back and forth.
Oh, yeah. And that's, and I've spent the past 20 years in the business, and it's amazing to me how that film is a miracle. The way it happened from a play to this movie that it got made through 9/11, through all, I mean.
Through stumbling
through all that legal problems
really
and everything.
Is a complete
getting
miracle.
that first tattoo.
Yep.
And then it's not lost because, after 20 years of problematic distribution history that we're resurrecting the film.
No,
so
I'm
that's
so
also
excited for that too because
That's great.
But I want to understand, before you met and the stories existed as stories you would tell to people who you were tattooing, were they written as a short anthology or?
I'm not a long person. I can't do a novel, but I'm great at short stories. And I'd written all these true short stories, and I was thinking, maybe I could do like a one-woman play where I tell my stories and play. I was trying to figure something out. When she came in and she said that, she lived in New York and she was a writer, I'm like, oh my God, my dream right there. It's like, that's where you go. Writers, poets, right? You go to New York. And she goes, yeah. So we were talking and I told her I was working on this thing. She goes, oh, well, why don't you send me it and I'll take a look at it and, tell you what I think. I said, okay. I didn't know anything about her play. I didn't know nothing about it. I just sent it to her, right? Because she was a writer in New York. I'm like, yeah, you're what I want to do. So I sent it to her, and then I get a letter, because back then people wrote letters, by hand. And she said, hey, I got a production company, blah, blah, blah. We'd like to produce your play. And she knew I didn't write it. She knew all that. And so she flew me out to New York. I stayed at her house for everything, all like off and on for a year and a half, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she had a big, huge brownstone, like 5 layers or something. So the bottom layer was a theater. So we did all the rehearsing and everything in the house, in the theater, in the house. And it was.
And then you lived upstairs.
I had a room upstairs. And here's the best part. I don't know about New York. Like so I was staying at their house. And I know it's a nice house. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a really nice brownstone and it's in the West Village and it's a very nice house. So my friend Val comes over, who lives in New York. And we go, I said, hey, this is Robin and Charlie and this, And so we went up to my room and she goes, just so you know, people don't live like this in New York.
No. Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, no, you don't understand.
In the village, right.
Nobody has all 5 or 6 levels of a brown. Like, this doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, I don't know the difference. Do you know what I mean?
How is it that existed? I mean, what was it? Where was it?
It was on 312 West 11th Street between Hudson and Greenwich. And,
oh my God!
Right?
Talking about the Gold Coast. Right?
Yeah. I did not come from money, but my husband did, and it was, he bought this house.
Amazing.
He's from New York.
Is it still a theater? Is there any remnant of that?
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah. Long story about how it got sold, but yeah, it's probably somebody's $8 jillion home now.
They probably black levels and rented it different because they made into apartments like levels kind of nowadays. I guess
It even had a backyard, which was I used it as a backstage, like for changing. Yeah.
And here I am, la la la. This is a nice house in New York. Okay, I like it really. And I still didn't really know. But I mean, I knew it was not. I was happy to be there. Don't get me wrong, because they pay for everything. I didn't have to pay for. And I'm not saying that in a weird way. I'm just like, the way I was treated and the way I was brought into it and what she said she was going to do, she actually did. And I think I got per diem on top of it. And then we go to all these restaurants where I could never afford to eat ever. And her husband, can I say Charlie's name?
Yeah.
Okay. Her and her husband, Charlie, would just take me to all these places. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And he took us to see Rent, but we left at the intermission. and then, well, it's true.
Yeah.
And when we went to see Hedwig, 3 or 4 times at the Jane Street Theater. I mean, I lived a life that I could never live in New York, ever. And I knew it. But at the time, I was so enjoying it. And I also realized I'm never going to move to New York because I can't live like that. So that was kind of a bummer.
It was fun, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so much theater going on in New York because you could afford to. There were so many little theaters, or so many, like Naked Angels was also down in Chelsea in that area, and so much of that is gone just because of the real estate has become so prohibitive. So
we went to a lot of plays, a lot of independent place too. Well, all over the place. It was
Hedwig was just down the street, right there.
Amazing. Let's do this because we're here and we have the benefit of. I mean, your film, as we record this, is going to be showing here tonight in this theater.
Yeah.
And we'll have. I know a bunch of the cast are going to come tonight as well to talk with a Q&A afterwards.
Nice.
And why don't we watch the trailer here?
Let's do it.
Hi.
I'm Animal.
Animal? You have a brother?
Named Animal.
Well, where you been?
He was in
prison.
college.
All my life, all I ever wanted to be was a rock and roll star. So I got an electric guitar and conned some chicks into starting a band with me.
I'm in a band so that I can get laid. Am I gonna see you later on? Chicks.
You would be really good if all of your songs were faster and louder. Yeah?
Shut up! I've spent years living, breathing, eating, sleeping, all things rock and roll. It never occurred to me that I might not make it. Unless you're young, hip, and look good on the side of a building, we're not gonna get signed.
I came here to ask you out.
On a date?
I think you're beautiful.
Forget you, Jackie. I don't need this shit.
You ever have a girlfriend?
No.
So it is safe to say that intimate relationships are not something you've had a lot of experience with.
It is safe to say I've had absolutely none.
Nick's been bugging me to do this rape fantasy.
I don't want to hear this.
So I'm reaching out for my gun.
Wait a minute. You shot Nick?
Well, yeah. That was my fantasy.
You're invited.
You ever think about quitting?
It's the only thing I've ever been good at.
To sell out.
I don't think you look good in a dress. Pretty.
I think you look pretty in a dress too, Chuck.
Lose all your friends.
You don't even know when to apologize.
You can't keep no woman. You can't keep no man.
Hey, happy birthday. How old are you?
How big's your dick?
Hit bottom.
Why do guys always have to fight?
What are you doing? You're gonna kill him!
And start over again.
When I play, I feel sick. Yeah.
You got your band, your family, and your friends. And if you're lucky, they're all one and the same.
Gina Gershon, Drea De Matteo, Mark Blucas, and Lori Petty. Pray for rock and roll.
Rock on! Rock. Oh, yeah. Practice and rock.
Here we are with Alex Steyermark, the director of this wonderful film, which is having this. I mean,
A new moment.
a new moment. I mean,
A new life.
You're
Resurrection.
doing essentially what every movie wants, which is that you have you land, you have your first moment, and then you're actually sort of now stood this sort of crazy test of time, and in a way, you sort of are gathering momentum as you continue. I mean, it's been being re-released in theaters. It's being re-released on, in this case, now DVD with Kino Lorber. You've sort of created this kind of a classic film and a cult classic.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, the fact that it's doing all those things now is really, it's a miracle, because a year ago, this film was lost. We didn't even know where it was. I last year was the 20th anniversary of the film, and we were getting approached about doing screenings. And this film, by the way, was one of the first films shot on the Sony Panavision digital cameras. So
oh, wow.
When we made this film, there were two other features shot that summer. One was a Star Wars segment, or the latest Star Wars, and Spy Kids, Robert Rodriguez's film, and our little movie. And it was so new that Panavision actually had tech people on the set every day just to see how it was all working. And
that's incredible that you got that sort of, wow, talk about a leg up.
Yeah, it was good. Well, as Robin and Cheri alluded to, this film was supposed to go into production earlier. And we were 2 days, the fact that we're here is a miracle, really, because even 2 days before we were set to shoot originally, turned out that not all the financing was in place and the whole thing shut down. We were literally going to start shooting the following Monday. It was a Friday.
Wow.
And so we just shut down, and at that point, Gina Gershon became a producer, and she brought in Gina Resnick and Alexis Magani-Sealy to produce the film, without whom we could have never gotten this thing back up and running. And in the meantime, I had been a music supervisor for many years, and I had been working a lot with this digital collective in New York called Indigent, which did films like Tadpole and Pieces of April, films that we've seen. And so I was already really into digital. I think digital cinema personally is beautiful. I like the way it reacts to light. And originally we were going to shoot Pray for Rock and Roll and Film, and now we didn't have the money to do that. And I said to the DP, who was Antonio Calvache, who shot In the Bedroom, I was like, look, we have to shoot this in digital. And he didn't, at first he didn't want to do it. And I said, look, either we shoot it in digital or this film doesn't get made. So we shot it in digital. And that was the format of the film. It was in digital. And
so it was a sort of a financial imperative.
It was a financial imperative for me. I kind of was excited about it creatively. It meant we could have more cameras, we could shoot differently. But it also meant that when it screened at Sundance in 2003, which is where it had its premiere, it was projected in digital. But that was the only time, because at the time, nobody else had digital. They brought in, for Sundance, they brought in a special machine, special projectors.
Wow.
And
almost a decade away from the full digital conversion for cinemas. So that was really early for digital
Very
cinema.
early.
Yeah.
And, later, when it went to Toronto, it was at TIFF, for example, that was shown on film. We had to make a film print. And that always looked good. Huh. And I have one 35 millimeter copy in a storage space.
Yeah, don't let it on the flood.
Yeah. But now these people wanted to show the film, and no one shows film now, really, or it's hard, It's just like, okay, where's the digital? So we couldn't find it. One of the producers lost the one copy that there was, and the other one was nowhere to be found. And so
Yikes. So when you say like, oh, now I understand what you meant when what you said. So you almost really lost it.
We really lost it.
Literally.
It was really lost.
I thought you meant more metaphorically than you actually mean literally. Yeah.
No. And it started a 6-month process of like, okay, I know there were two masters. I remember when we had Sundance, I flew on one flight.
Wow.
And Alexis flew on another flight, in case one of them went down in the mountains.
Save that movie.
So I knew there was another one, but it was a question of where, So it was a 6-month going through inventories. Some people wouldn't tell me what they had. Finally, there was something on a list on an Excel spreadsheet that looked like it might be the master, the other master. It was at Photochem. And I talked to the woman and I said, look, do me a favor. There so many things have been wrong about this so far. Because in their computer, it said it was unplayable. She said, we have this thing that's on a shelf in the vault. It's unplayable. It's marked unplayable. Do me a favor, just put it in the machine and see if it would play. And 2 hours later, I got an email saying, it plays.
Wow.
So immediately.
Make a copy.
Immediately, I was like,
make
okay, we
copies,
make a
right,
copy. Yeah. We, do all this. Then I had to, the surround elements were separate. So I had to,
Recreate.
What we're showing is a full restoration because it never existed. So,
And of course, with your sound background, obviously, that was something that you could sort of dive into.
I did a lot of it myself on my Avid at home.
Yeah. Because you're a music producer and you've done much music sort of super and obviously you have that background.
I did. I mean, I went to film school and I studied cinematography actually, and I was an editor for many years. But I found myself at some point in the film music world, and I was a music supervisor for many years, 15 years with Spike Lee, and I worked with Ang Lee on several of his projects, Paul Schrader, among others, a lot of different people. One of the films that I was the executive music producer on was Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And that's how I got in. This came to be because someone, a mutual friend said, oh, I know these people are producing a film called Pray for Rock and Roll, and they're trying to find someone to produce the music. Would you be interested? And I said, well, let me talk to them. And they sent me the script, and I loved the script. And one of the original producers they were telling me all these first-time directors that they were talking to. And I said, you know what, I just did that on Hedwig, and I love John Cameron Mitchell, but if you're talking to first-time, because they wanted to attach me as a music producer, and I said, if you want me involved with this film, I want to direct it. Because I loved the script. I thought it was incredible. It was the first, I had worked on a lot of music films, and it was the first one that I read that I felt really accurately portrayed the life of a musician, punk rock musician. I was in a punk band in Chicago. I knew this scene really well. I particularly loved the LA punk scene. Even though I was living in New York, all my bands were, from LA that I love. X, my favorite all-time band. It's referenced in the script. I feel lucky to be friends with John Doe and have worked with him.
Wow.
And he's the one that made it possible for us to have the clip from Decline of Western Civilization that Penelope Spheris kindly gave to us for the film.
Wow.
So, I said, I want to direct it. And I met with them, and I told them my ideas, and they liked it, and so.
Okay, so then go ahead.
That's how I got involved.
I'm kind of curious. The film is filmed with female energy. It's female stories.
Oh yeah.
And in this day and age, this thing might not happen. But was there ever a concern on your part about having a male director? Was there ever a concern that I can't tell this story?
When I met Alex, I was not concerned at all.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to meet whoever it was going to be, and I'd never met him. I just knew he was attached to that. And I'm like, if he's attached to that, and come on, you know what I mean? It was a done deal.
Yeah.
Right. So
He's got the.
Yeah. I would, if something was horrible about it, I would have been like, oh my God, but it wasn't. It was fine. We were fine, got along, everything was good. Talked about some stuff. I was, like, I wanted to play the lead because I'm worried. And he says, Gina, and I'm like, okay, and then it was and then I mean, I don't think we ever had a fight.
No.
I don't remember ever having a fight which is weird, right?
And you were just telling it.
Writer and directors always fight.
I will say that one of the motivations for getting this film out there is I love this, again, because it really disappeared, was that I love the story so much. I loved Cheri so much. And I felt like her story got shortchanged, really did. And when I would always, I had a crappy DVD version of this, an old DVD. And I was just like, it's just not right. The film looks great. These performances are great. The story's great. It was, as Robin said, prescient. Now it plays even better now in a way. A lot of the story elements really resonate, I think, now in ways that I don't know that people were prepared for.
Yeah, that's 100%. Right. I mean, it's certainly in terms of the fluidity of how people moved in and out of relationships and having central characters who are gay characters. I mean, it's so much more part of popular culture in a way than it was when it came out, it would seem.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, what Cheri was just saying, I mean, I was in New York during this time, although, like I said, I was always going to see the LA bands whenever they came to town. And, it was very fluid. I mean, people were just, it wasn't a thing, you were who you were. It was really about self-expression and And I thought that was really beautifully reflected in the story, in the script as well. You know, it's just characters who happen to be gay or happen to be bi or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much how it was.
They were, to me, they were always musicians first in a weird way, and you know, in the relationships evolve however they evolve in the music world. And I just thought, you know, they're so well portrayed in the screenplay. I was, you know, it was really a question of casting for me, because for casting, it's 95% of the movie for me as a director is casting the right people.
Right, that's what Kazan says as well, right? Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, I even now when I look at it, like even without sound, you know, I have this theory that people, if you really want to understand what people's personalities are, you just look at them when they're in repose, when they're not actually trying to say anything, they're listening to somebody else.
Yeah.
And when I look at the actors in this, I feel like they're so comfortable in their skins and they're so comfortable in these roles, and the roles are so well written that, you know, there's just a shot of Dre sitting there, you know, and you just like, wow, it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like when you just see Dre sitting there, or Lori, you know, all of them, Gina and Shelley. I mean,
what was the casting process like? I mean, obviously you got Gina first, and she helped you bring some of the money in, and her having obviously rockers, you know, the ability to be able to kind of carry that off, because that's a very specific skill.
Well, the casting was, you know, first of all, Gina was the obvious choice for me. You know, I just thought she had the right vibe from seeing her in other films, obviously, in Bound and other things. And, you know, I wasn't sure if she could sing, you know, but she was doing cabaret on Broadway right around that time. So I got to see that.
That's right.
And I was like, yeah, she can sing, you know, she could really sing. And she couldn't sing this. I didn't know if she could sing this kind of music, you know. And so, you know, and with a music film, it's like two separate projects altogether. You spend 2 months just doing the music before you're even ready to do the film. So I brought in Stephen Trask, who had written the music for Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and I said, Stephen, you got to come in and produce this for me now.
Right.
And he was amazing, you know, and he brought in Tim O'Hare, who was the recording engineer who does this music. That was, he had been an engineer at Fort Apache, which is like a iconic punk studio in Boston, and he just knew the sound. And it was important to me that the musicians that play the tracks that the actors are performing to be like an all-star, all-woman band. You know, I really wanted that to be the case. And so we got Samantha Maloney to play drums. She was in Hole at the time, and Motley Crue. Sarah Lee, who's one of the great bass players of all time.
She was Gang of Four, B-52s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Indigo Girls. And,
wow.
And then Cheri played, and then Joan Jett was originally involved, but then when the financing of the whole thing fell apart originally, that she fell out. But she did teach Gina how to play electric guitar, which was so a lot of the sort of attitude she got from that. Cheri gave her a lot of pointers. Gina Volpe from the Lunatics played the guitar. So it was a really great band.
Sort of the who's who of all the music
people.
Yeah, the
recording thing was amazing. It was just
incredible.
And Gina, of course, did the vocals in there. But I remember when she was, because, you know, she could sing, she could play the guitar too, like basic guitar. So that was good, right? She looks very natural. But I remember when we were talking, her and I were talking a lot about the character and everything. And she was like, yeah, I don't really sing like that, but whatever. And I said, like, listen to Courtney Love and like Marianne Faithfull. And, you know, like listen to the sort of that kind of voice where it's sort of like it's just more of a deeper kind of powerful-ish and emotional, but solid kind of thing, you know, a little raspy, whatever. There's so many variations. But anyway, she listened to a bunch of that stuff, I'm assuming, because all of a sudden she came out and I'm like, well, okay, I guess you did that. You did your homework, right? Amazing.
Yeah. Right? I mean, it looks, she looks like she's been doing it forever.
Exactly. And another thing Alex made them do, which I loved, the band, he made them carry their equipment into the rehearsal room and set it right like a band. You made them do like band practice with the actors. So they would be all in there, and they'd have to do it like for reals, not like, okay, come somebody, PA, come help me. No, they did all that on their own, man. And none of them played an instrument, but Gina,
yeah.
Shelley Cole, I have to say.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so the drummer.
Yeah, Shelley Cole. She's incredible. She didn't play the drum?
No.
Holy Moses.
No, and when I was watching her, I'm like,
yeah, I thought, well, they hired a drummer.
Never know.
She had a great coach, Malcolm Cross, who's coming tonight.
Oh, good.
And
awesome.
They worked for 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, very intensely. I spent a couple of sessions with them, and it was rigorous.
I bet.
But that was interesting, going back to the audition process, because so Gina was clearly going to be Jackie. As Robin mentioned, Dre was already attached. Originally, when we were going to shoot, she couldn't do it. She had scheduling conflicts.
She was doing a little
Sopranos.
Little show.
I've heard of that show, yeah.
And but I knew beforehand, that was part of what was attractive to me, because I knew Dre from before, and because she had done a reading of a script of mine, and Robin had brought her into the project, and I was like, okay, that's great. And so actually, when the schedule changed, one of the very fortuitous things about that was that Dre was available. Yeah. And then we had Sheila Jaffe, who's a great casting director who I had worked with, and we were doing all the auditions here in LA, which is where we filmed. And she brought in some amazing people, including Lori and Mark Blucas and Ivan. I knew Ivan Martin from New York, who plays Nick, but Shelley, so I had first seen her on a tape, like a VHS audition, and I was like, she's just good, so let's bring her in, And for me, like, one of the most important parts of the audition process is actually watching the actor enter the room and go and sit down. You learn more from that than just about anything. Is how they feel about themselves, how they move. That's really important. And when she walked in, I was like, oh, wow, she walks like a drummer. Drummers have a way, like this just very like relaxed, sort of self-assured way of entering a room. And she came in and she sat down like a drummer. She sat the way a drummer sits on a stool, like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I was like, wow, okay, like if she can act, she's perfect. And she was great. Yeah. So there was this weird feeling that I had that she actually had the physicality of a drummer. And I mean, you see it on screen. She actually had this kind of, and she's incredible. I mean, she doesn't miss anything.
No,
she is, and her face is so sort of.
And there's a really nerdy little thing, but in the finale, the bass drum the kick drum always had sandbags in it, so it wouldn't move. And you can see the head is like moving because she's hitting the paddle, and that's with sandbags inside it, So she was rocking it.
She was railing.
Yeah, she was amazing.
It was crazy.
And they were all great. I mean, and as Cheri said, like, I wanted them to really schlep their instruments, because like musicians develop like a slouch, from carrying their cases and moving their things. And I encouraged them to mess up their instruments, and Dre, like, she really, she really
distressed it or whatever.
And I was going to use another word, but
okay. I'm trying to be polite.
Personalize it. Come on,
she personalized it.
Effed it up.
Yeah. So anyway, that was that. So then that was that whole process, and then.
So that was for a month or 2 months before.
Well, first you have to rehearse the musicians that are going to record the tracks.
Right.
Then you have to go and record the tracks, which we did upstate New York. Gina did the vocals. That's a couple of weeks. You got to mix all that stuff. It's a good couple of months, and then you take all of that, and now you bring in the actors. And they have to learn the songs, and they have to learn their instruments. We had really good coaches, and that's. So I would do in the morning. I would do scene rehearsals. And in the afternoon, we would do music rehearsals. We had a real music rehearsal space. And
did you have a brownstone with a lot of floors? And
well, we were in LA.
That's for theater, sir. That's for theater.
Oh, here would be a Spanish teacher.
No.
Right.
We were in LA, so we had a crappy office somewhere with temporary furniture, and we had a rehearsal.
You got a craftsman with a garage in the back. That's.
But just for the record, I stayed with Mrs. Shushan in a very beautiful house in Santa Monica that she had got for me.
But
not for me, for us. But I'm saying I still was spoiled.
It was important for me to. These guys are talking about being on set. For me, I've always had writers on set. I'm a writer. I respect the writer's voice. And the truth is, unless they're really impossible, which has so far not been the case, I'd rather have them there. It's their voice. Like, I don't necessarily, who's got time, It's better to have them there, So we did do rewrites, but I like to start always with a table read. I always want the writers there so that they can hear it, because writers aren't always used to, they're writing. They may not have acting experience. They may not know what sits easily in an actor's
what
mouth.
feels right. Yep.
And so I want them to hear it. I always ask the actors to read what's on the page, because I'm like, look, let's hear it. You're good actors. If it's not working, it's probably because there is something wrong with the
dialogue.
Yeah. But let's have the writers hear that, and we'll go back and work on it. And so we would do that, and. There was a lot of tweaking going on throughout filming, but it was better to have them there, And so that's morning was scene rehearsals and afternoon was band rehearsals. At night sometimes we'd go see bands or whatever.
That's such a blast. I bet the cast had a incredible time
I think we had time. We were all really tight, and it was really nice. And the band that I was in had a female lead singer, but it was interesting to watch 4 actresses rehearsing in the afternoon. I didn't realize how bawdy it could get.
Yeah.
You didn't prepare me for that, Cheri.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the
Were you
script.
blushing?
It's in the script a little bit, but
that's legit. I always had girl bands, and that's how we talk. I wouldn't know how to write. If I could never write a whole movie about a straight girl. Be a voice. I couldn't, you know what I mean? A bisexual girl or gay girl, yeah. But so I don't like dialogue. I probably write the most horrible dialogue because I don't know anything about it. I really can only write about what I know. And I know that Lori Petty, she has a certain cadence, when she speaks, and everybody has their own voice. And I was liking that he was allowing that to, just let them come to, because I never thought it was I'm just yeah, whatever, do it. You know what I mean? And everything worked out. I didn't think it was anything major that bothered me about any of that stuff. Really, can't remember anything that I got upset about. I don't remember anything that I really got upset about. I probably did. I was kind of a bitch, but you know what I mean? Probably not to you. I had problems with other people that I was mentioning it to.
You got one?
Yeah, I just that, I as an actor on set, I know that I love having the writer. So, because you can, particularly someone who's lived the life and and just to be able to get more color and stuff like that as well. So it's great that I think some directors just don't no, this is my vision, and they can't actually sort of collaborate. And the fact is that this is your story. You birthed the story, and we're all making this together. Yeah. And the fact that, again, you're there, I just think it would give it a level of just sort of even more depth and integrity because you're carrying the spirit of what this movie is, right?
Right. It was very specific, and people would be like, "Oh, that could never happen." And I'm like, it all happened. How are you going to say that never happened? It all happened. But when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the stories. That's what I know. You know what I mean? And I remember, and I think it'll do better this time because it was a little rough. There's a lot of pretty. Some stuff in there that's a little not pretty, I guess is the word. Dialogue, that's how girls really talk. But I think now coming back out now it's gonna do much, much better because I think people have seen more, are more open to things instead of being so judgmental because it was 4 women lead, right? All the things you're not supposed to do.
Right.
That's what we did. That's how we did it.
Yeah.
So now I think people are going to be more likely to, it has like gay undertones, and it's, about music. It's about LA. It's about everything that people are more familiar with now. But it could never be made today. You could not make that movie today because there's nothing exists like that no more. The clubs aren't like that anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's just...
Yes, no, the music scene has changed a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be a different kind of
right, but I could
thing,
never.
but not this.
Yeah,
not this.
I could never do it because I wouldn't know what to do.
I want to ask about another aesthetic choice in the film, and that's the tattoos.
Yeah.
Was that a joint collaboration, or the actors?
Well, Gina, when I hung out with Gina, I mean, Alex already knew I had a bunch of tattoos. So when I hung out with Gina, we were talking about the tattoos, and she was like, I want to have all the tattoos because it's part of the aesthetic. But I said, you don't have to have the tattoos I have. She got the back piece I have. I have a back piece, and she got that as a thing. Other than that, she just picked them all out. I go, the point is, like, you have tattoos everywhere. At a time when most women didn't. Like, that was nice. So she pretty much just picked out all of her tattoos. I had nothing to do with any of her tattoos at all. And then...
I mean, the only thing I told her was that they should be... they should reflect, like, her story.
Yeah.
So she should try to put together a personal narrative.
She did her knuckles like mine. She did a few
knuckles,
things.
But and then of course she had to tattoo. So
yeah,
there was a studio in Hollywood that she went to and learned how to. She sat there for several days just watching them and learning how to do that because I didn't want that to be lame.
Oh God, I would die.
I mean, tattoos are. I mean, Greg's right. I mean, it's such an integral part of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, in a
and
way.
the characters. I mean, not just Gina,
At the time,
Lucas as well. And
when I was writing that, I owned a tattoo
Mm-hmm.
studio. I had a tattoo studio in Santa Cruz for like 20 years, so it is important.
That's how you met Robin.
Yes. Very crazy, but great. I mean, it's the whole thing to me. Not being in this industry, like living around it and knowing actors, but the fact that everything just fell together, it took a lot of bad things, like a lot of things dropped out and we were all over and but everything that it ended up being was amazing. Like this didn't happen, but then this happened, you know what I mean? And the whole thing came, and even now with you guys, I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing because it was just sitting there not doing anything. I'm like, what? What are you going to do? Like, I can't even
as soon as I saw the email from Kino Lorber, it was like, I love that film. I remember playing that film.
Good.
And we have to do something with this.
That was the premiere was...
at the Sunset 5, yeah.
So it premiered the first time?
No, Film Fest, Sundance.
The first theatrical, it opened there. Yeah. I remember it was my birthday.
Wow.
And it was also the night that Radiohead was playing at Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, it's a big, tough choice.
So I said, I can't, I was too nervous to go see it in the film. And I said, I'm just going to go to see Radiohead.
Raider.
No wonder we didn't have a Q&A. All right.
Yeah.
That's
well,
funny.
we're really grateful to you guys that you're doing this. This is how it should have been done in the first place, but here we
Give
are.
it a fair chance. That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still. Well, we still got a shot.
Yeah, I mean, Greg and the Lemley family have done so much for filmmakers for so long, right? And have the Sunset 5 was, arguably the most successful independent theater in the country. Maybe neck and neck with Angelica, but it was such a hot spot here in Los Angeles, and so many amazing films came through, and we all went all the time. And you that's when you really kind of came into the business, right?
Well, at this point, probably had been in for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
In 2003. So after the 1992.
Well, after that first weekend, we were really optimistic.
Oh my God.
But then the actual release, the original release, they were trying to be innovative, but it didn't quite work out.
I think they thought, because Sundance, we did one screening, and they're like, "Oh my God, so many people miss it." So they did a second screen, just two, right? They set up a second screening.
Two screenings,
for us. Yeah. So I'm like, "Oh, we're killing it. We had the best party."
I bet you did.
No, I'm serious. We had Guns N' Roses, sans Axl.
Wow.
Okay, and then we had Shooter Jennings. He sang some. Gina came up and sang, but they were the band, and they played like a couple of songs from the movie, and a couple of Guns N' Roses songs, and a couple of cover songs, and it was The party was amazing.
It's legendary.
It was like it's on YouTube even.
Yeah.
Sounds not the sound's not that good, but it's cool to see like Slash and those guys. They're in a how many people? What 500 maybe? It was a small room.
That's incredible.
I mean, it was great. I'm like, nobody's going to beat that. So everything, all these crazy, weird things came together that just usually don't. And I understand that now more than I did at the time. I just assumed that that's how it was.
Right.
And then after I made the movie, I read Joe Esterhouse's book, The Devil's Guide to Hollywood, The Writer's Guide. And I thought, I wish I would have read that book before because that really gave me some perspective on being a writer and how they hate you. And Swimming with Sharks as well. That movie, but I didn't realize they really do not want you around. Like didn't really understand that, and I think it's it's a control thing. Director of film buy, and I'm like, did you write it? I don't think so. You know what I mean? Yeah. But and that's why I stayed out of it. I didn't even after we did this film. I'm like, I can't stay in this world. It was very difficult for me, like as an artistic person because I kind of fell into it accidentally, and I had a great time and loved it. But then I didn't want to come back into Hollywood and do that, you know. So then I made my own film because I'm like, I just had to kind of prove that to myself, and I did it. So that was good. But it was just so many weird things happened that were. Just crazy that, I don't know, like lightning in a bottle. Like even this with you guys, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me, Alex? You know what I mean? Like you found the movie. I didn't know it was lost, but he found it because there's nowhere, you know, and now we're talking to you people and you're actually doing things.
Out there. People can get it.
We got a trailer that looks like the movie. You know?
Yeah, no, the trailer is fantastic.
And and that was Alex. And I remember when I saw the trailer for the original film, I'm like, why isn't there any alkaloids on there? Right? Because people, like, if I look at a film I've never heard of, I look and see if it's played festivals and things like that.
Right.
Not that it's always going to be a good film, but at the very least, it's going to be an interesting film or a different type of film.
Right.
But it's important when I look at films to see, like, oh, have they done it? And if they haven't, that's okay too. But it's a real selling point for me, especially with independent film.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Sure.
It's interesting because when this film first came out, the original distributor wanted to downplay the festival invitations.
Huh.
And they were like, no, it's going to peg it as an indie movie.
It is an indie movie.
Is that a bad thing?
It has a budget of an indie movie. I'm telling you right now.
We're like, it is an indie movie. So, and it played at dozens and dozens of so many festivals actually that by the time it was in theaters, the core audience had already seen it at a festival.
There is that too.
So anyway, but it seems now festivals is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a way to sort of spread the word of mouth. Well, I'm curious in terms of, maybe both of you could answer this, but just in terms of, you know, the themes of the movie, the things that your audiences have said to you, or the feedback that you've had from, and I'm going to say from women particularly, because if it's a woman's, you're going to drop it a third time.
I remember when I first tried to drink water.
Cheri has a drinking problem.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. I started to be all cool and quiet and sort of slip up and down, but nope. Okay, anyway, where were you guys?
So I'll start the question again. Basically, I'm just wondering what thematically, if there were things that women have said in terms of kind of what this movie means to them, or why it touches them, or why it's been something that they continue to come back to, or why you know, here we are. I mean, there's not a lot of films 20 years later you're still talking about, and or that get sort of like get invited back to the ball, right? As you have, and you are, and what place in people? Yeah, what is that place in women who saw the film that you elicited response?
I cannot tell you how many women responded to the sexual abuse part of the film, and I got so many emails saying, oh my God, I saw your movie, and you know, like I've never seen it out like that, where somebody had that and they overcame it, and like, thank you so much, and I'm gonna finally tell somebody that happened to me. I got like an ungodly amount of those, and from women in bands. They're like, well, finally, looks like a real band. And because Alex was like, I'm not gonna look like, you know how they cut away guitars, and then they cut to the actor's face. Like this was like, they all played legit every note for note, you know, because those things you can tell are fake. But there's a lot of female musicians and females who had an abusive, you know, hard time growing up and stuff. A big response from that. Mm-hmm. Like I felt like a therapist.
Yeah,
I bet.
I'm like, well, here, you know what? Like this has worked for me, you know, and it was pretty cool. I mean, I was glad.
We've had I've had people come up to me after the New York screenings and say, really, thank you for making that film. It's very, very moved. People in the audience are very moved.
And again, you can't make any of that up. Like, all of that's real, you know? And I think that's
including the tattoo on the head and all that?
I can't talk about that.
I understand. Okay, understood.
But the conversation with my mother, like, that's verbatim stuff, you know? That's just all, like, real legit things that have happened. And I think that's what makes it work.
Well, that's an amazing scene also. I mean, because it's, the sisters are clearly, you know, aligned, and the brother doesn't want to hear about it.
And that's my brother's
he
like
didn't
that.
know about it.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't experiencing it.
He didn't experience it. Yeah, to this day, if we start talking, which we don't anymore, but it was very much how my brother is and very much how my sister was.
Yeah. Felt very authentic.
And you didn't, the way you shot it also was vivid and explicit and difficult. Like you didn't pull punches as well.
No, I didn't want to. I mean, the characters were really familiar to me. You know, that was the thing that I loved about the script. I loved being on set with these actresses too. That it's such a generous performance from every single one of them. You're just like, wow, you know, I mean, I know all of their work, and in many ways, to me, it's still some of my favorite work that they've done, and it's not just because it's our movie. And I just know what they put into it, you know, and I could feel on set that it felt like we were making something, I don't know, special. You know, what can I say? It was really important to me. You were talking about it as a music guy on the set of other music films. I was, you know, you only had so much input, obviously, into how it was shot. I tended to, on films that had musical performances, I tended to work with the actors, you know, preparing them and so on, and I would often work with the DP and always with the director, but you know, there's always so much input you can have in how it's shot, you know. And one of the things that always frustrated with me as a music person, as a film music person, was it's not being shot in a musical way, you know. Right.
Someone doesn't know what that's...
They don't know what's going on here. Like, you know, and I could sometimes say, oh, you know, you make sure you get this shot or for this moment. But so with this film, it was really important to me that it be shot in what I would consider a musical way, you know, that the camera moves be musical, that they be logical to what was happening musically and also dramatically, because a lot of the story is told in musical performances. The whole thing, every 6 minutes, the relationship between Laurie Petty and Shelley Cole's character, you know, and how Dre is reacting to all of this. All of that is being told through the way they look at each other while they're playing, you know. So that was really important to me too, that we in all those things film it in such a way that you were also getting story information.
And the dynamic, right, yeah.
You know, because John Curigliano once said something which I always thought was great. He said his problem with music films is that most music films are really sports movies in disguise. You know, it's like let's like get ready for the big competition and everything turns out great, you know, and that's not what most musicians' lives are like, you know, and that's what I loved about the script, and that's kind of, you know, that was really important in terms of how to film it. Like, also, as a musician, I always felt like a lot of films, you don't actually, it's not shot like you experience it as a musician, you know.
Or an audience, I'm sorry, or even an audience member.
Experience, you know what I mean? As a concert, right?
Yeah, it's not fluid like real life.
Yeah, well, the sound, I wanted it to be like it was live, you know, which it sounds great. But also like, so the rehearsal space where they meet, you know, where so much happens in this film and they perform, I wanted to shoot it in a way that you were inside it, you know, that you were feeling like how is it to be in a room and you're playing and you're looking at the person over there, you know, because so many music films are shot at still like more from a audience perspective.
Kind of, right, yeah.
So, you know, a lot of that was, you know, a lot of what's happening there is informed by wanting to do those things that way.
I want to talk about an intersectionality question. Watching cable TV shows, watching HBO shows in that period, and you would see the director credit, and you would say, okay, that's where that independent filmmaker is, that's how they're making their money right now until they make their next independent film. Right. But, you watch music videos and you don't necessarily, you don't necessarily know who's making the film, directing it, and so on and so forth. And I think actually now that I look back, there probably was a lot of intersectionality between independent film and music videos.
Music videos. And
you spent some time in that world, correct?
I did. I had directed music videos, and I remember I directed one of the first music videos that got regular play on MTV. That's how long ago it was. I was really young, but I would come to LA and have meetings with people about, I want to be a director, and they were like, yeah, but you've only done music videos. We're going
to hire John Landis to do this.
It didn't translate.
We need Spielberg on this, I think.
It didn't translate. That's changed a little bit, obviously, but it didn't. I
think a lot, perhaps. I think Spike Jones does a lot of music.
Sure. Or people who were music video directors who got to do features. That just didn't happen to me anyway. I don't know.
When they asked you that question about the videos, and I said, no, it doesn't make a difference, and you had a different thing. But I'm thinking about when we made our own videos back then, right? We didn't have people making our videos. So I'm like, no, it doesn't make any difference in the band. And you could tell. It's out, they're on, where were they on? They're on like YouTube. One was on MTV, whatever. But, back then it was all DIY. You made your own videos. You did everything on your own. So I remember being very much in control of all of that stuff then, as opposed to like in the actual film industry or where, people can tell you things. It's weird to be in a situation where, for me, to have to sit back a lot and just trust. It was very hard for me to do that. And I think the play with Robin really got me doing that. And I think I was better understanding Alex's choices in the film because I'd worked with Robin and her choices on. So I learned a lot about directing-ish, like a play is different than a film, but I learned a lot about how to be cool about, just like don't get all
process, right?
Panicky, just because it would have been horrible. So and we were blessed with a great director, a great actor. Everything was great. It was just crazy. It was so amazing.
Just like it all just
came
together.
It did. And every day was so much fun on the set. We didn't have I don't remember any drama. I remember sitting out with the crew people that this guy was dating this girl and there was a big deal about it. But like in the actual movie itself, there was no problems. Everybody's fine, getting along. It was just all chill,
That's great.
And I can't say enough about Mark Lucas and Ivan Martin because Ivan is so amazing. That whole dance scene that you did with him, that wasn't scripted as far as like specifically what to do. I probably say he did some kind of weird dance or whatever. That was such a great thing that you did with it. But Ivan himself is so amazing at that.
I love that scene.
It's so good.
That's the one I'm most proud of as a director in the film. Weirdly, really because I remember when we saw it too. I think it was at Frameline or something, and Gina turned to me after that scene. She said, "That's my favorite scene in the movie."
It's good.
Well, that's the one. With all due respect, that was the one scene in the script where I was like, I want to do this differently.
No, it's fine. It was great.
And we were lucky, that one is a little influenced by my love for Fassbinder, actually.
And probably bowling, because where you get the bowling pins in there.
That came out of the rehearsal process because we had a great art department on this film, I have to say. Really, they had 2 nickels to put this together, and it really looks great.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, the props people were great. The John Chichester, who was the production designer, he did something that maybe is typical, but I had never experienced it, where all the rooms are painted, like Jackie's apartment, for example, we shot at the Ambassador Hotel. It was abandoned. It was condemned at that time.
Yes, I shot some things there too.
The only people they would, for whatever reason, let in there were film crews. There were asbestos problems and all kinds of 6-toed cats everywhere. And And
the elevator from The Shining.
Yeah. So
remember that?
We had to create sets there. The house where the band house was a house that we somehow got people in Koreatown to move out of their house for a few weeks, and but everything was, all the walls were painted. And I remember that John, he came in one day and he said, "Look, I've painted all these wood panels, different shades of these colors that I think would be good. Now, can we put them up against the actors' faces and do camera tests?" And I thought that maybe people do that all the time, but I thought that was really cool. Like the actual tone of each color is been selected based on how it looks next to the actor's face and with the cameras. I thought,
that's cool.
So those guys were amazing. Really, I have to say.
Happens seriously.
One of the things that Greg and I talk about a lot, and sort of part of the inspiration for this podcast and for this opportunity to sort of meet in a theater, is the joy of actually sort of watching a movie in the theater, and what that's like. This movie, and obviously I know it's going to be on DVD, and I love Kino Lorber, and it's wonderful that it will live on, and it seems like it would be a particular crowd pleaser. I would love to watch this movie with an audience, because it would just seem like it would kind of like a concert, kind of like carry you.
It is definitely. It is a film that is really, very satisfying to watch in a theater, and very, like, people get into it. I mean, having seen it in, full houses and seeing how it plays, I don't want to do any spoilers, but there are, revenge moments that play that, in the audience you can feel. There are, moments when the music is so, like, intense. Gina's playing where people, like, start shouting because she's nailing a guitar solo, or laughs. I mean, I remember when we showed it at Frameline in the Castro Theater, it was completely full.
Oh, wow.
People were laughing so hard at Cheri's jokes that they were missing half the dialogue. It's a really great, and hopefully people will see. I mean, of course, now people see films different ways. I'm grateful that you couldn't even stream this movie for the last 15 years. If you could get your hands on an old DVD, it was standard def, but it wasn't even, like, well produced.
Well, you couldn't even find it, so
we couldn't find it. So it would be.
No, but it's, it's a standard def film, or DVD, and it's like, well, the music's just not going to be. I mean, it's none of it's going to work.
And it sounds great, but no, we're grateful that Laemmle is showing it here. It's like how it should be, and.
Well, we're really hopeful first and foremost. I mean, the podcast is for. It's not called Inside the Laemmle. It's called Inside the Arthouse. And there are art houses around the country who are doing repertory programming. And they can finally now actually access this film, because, if you wanted to play the film, you couldn't. Not only could you not find, something suitable for, putting on screen, but you couldn't license it. So, you can, if you're seeing this podcast wherever you are and you want to go to your local art house and ask them to play the film, they can do it.
This is a film you want to see in a theater.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. The first time I saw the whole movie, I saw it like when you were filming what's called the dailies at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So I sit with the actors and watch that, but I never saw the actual movie completed until I was at Sundance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And my mom came, and my brother and my sister came.
That must have blown your mind.
Yeah. So I'm sitting with my mom. I'm sitting with she's holding my hand the whole time, And it seemed like it went by that fast to me the first time. And after the movie, my family really liked it. My brother, of course, was like, well, my sister's like, But my mom said, everybody knows everything about our family now. I said, well,
it's out.
You knew I was writing a true story, Mom. Like, what do you want? But they all loved it. 'Cause, I mean, it was real to them too, But I was blown away when I first saw it, because I had no idea, and I was laughing at my own jokes, I must say. And like the Laurie scene, I was like, oh my God, like so many things I didn't know how you shot them. And it's the first time seeing some of these things, and I was just completely so blown away from that press. And then the next time I went and saw it, I kind of just went myself with some people and sat and just like watched the movie, you know what I mean? And it was so nice to see people loving it, just laughing and, at the right time and being like, yeah, they got it. I was watching that and like, oh my God, they're getting it, right? Because you don't know when you write something, it's your perspective. And I feel like if you write something and people want to talk to you about or criticize, and you're like, no, that you're not really a great writer because if you want to share it in film or theater, right? People need to get it. So you kind of have to understand that you can't just be like, no, it has to be like that when it's really not the best way to present things, right? So I saw all of that in that first time at Sundance, and it was just so exciting to me. I couldn't even believe it. I was really beside myself. And then they had the party. I didn't know that Guns N' Roses was going to be there. But Gina goes, hey, I got a surprise for you. After the screening or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know what it was, because she gave me a couple of gifts and, things like that. And so first of all, I go to the party, I can't get in. They're like,
who are you?
Who are you? And I said, well, Cheri Lovedog, I wrote the movie. It's about my story. And they're like, yeah, well, you're not on the paper. And I'm my mom, my brother, my sister, right? My stepbrother, like a bunch of my family came. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? And then so I called Gina. And I'm like, they're not letting me in. They're not letting me in. She goes, hold on. And then she went, I don't know what she did. And they're like, oh, yeah, come in. And then I came in and I saw that. And I'm like, God damn it. That was so beautiful. That was so and thoughtful of her. That was some work. To get them to do it. She might have been friends with them already. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, but to get them to come out and do it at Sundance and to rehearse, there were not a lot because they're very seasoned pros, but a degree of rehearsal and things. And then Gina saying, I'm going up on stage. I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So I went up when Shooter was singing that Rolling Stones song, whatever, and I just kind of sang backups with him because I'm like, I'm going to go up there. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah,
right. So I'm like, right up on the stage.
It's your party. Right.
Yeah,
listen, if it makes you feel any better, my assistant at the time, Allison, came to see the screening in New York, one of the screenings. She brought her 15-year-old punk drummer who loved the movie.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And I'm talking about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, 2 weeks ago, just in New York.
2024.
Okay.
And she told me that she tried to get into the party.
Yeah.
She went and they said, sorry, your name's not on the list. And she said, sorry, I made that list. My name is on there.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I believe it, man. Some people had actual tickets.
The ultimate throwdown, right?
Yeah. I'm like, but I said, no, this is my movie. It's not my movie, but it's my movie. I should be on there. Where's this thing that says the list of people who made the movie? But
so you opened in New York. And you're opening here in Los Angeles, and then what's the trajectory for this in terms of being in theaters?
We'll see. Kino Lorber has been great. They distributed a documentary that I made, the 78 Project, and that when I got my hands on this master, I went back to them and I said, listen, I contacted Richard Lorber and I said, Richard, look, I have this film. The rights are available. It's been restored. It was lost. Stars Gina Gershon. I thought maybe he would just put it on Kino Now or something. I would have been. He said, that sounds very interesting. So nothing for 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks later, I get an email saying, we love this movie. This film never got what it deserved. Wow. We think we can put it out in theaters. And, it's a good time. You would know better, but according to Richard, it's a good time for repertory cinema.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot of interest in young audiences going out and seeing, and apparently music films are really popular with young audiences. So our hope is that it will play a bunch more theaters. It's never come out in a lot of countries internationally. So, for example, in Japan, South Korea, nowhere, and Gina has a huge fan base there. So we'll see what happens internationally. This podcast is going to be come
seen
out
by 10 people.
No, it's going to come out around the time of the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, that's our plan.
All of them need to bring 10 of their friends, though, and it's
so
the Blu-ray's coming out at the end of September.
Yeah, so that may I don't know how that impacts on whether art houses will continue to show, but it is really best enjoyed in some ways. There are going to be great bonus features on the Blu-ray. Eventually, it'll be available for streaming, which is great.
Yeah. We're not enemies of streaming. We're certainly not enemies of physical media. I think that's super important because we can see that when something disappears from a platform, it kind of does disappear, and the fact that physical media exists. So
I will say,
I want to say that, but it's also available to play theatrically, and programmers should show it.
One of the things that's been so cool to see in New York. We had a sold-out screening, the first one. The second one was almost sold out. Is that it's groups of women coming together, like 3 or 4 women, young women, women who were in bands at this time.
Old women like me.
And contemporaries. You mean your contemporaries?
I'm contemporary, yes. It's just a number.
And that's cool because they're coming in groups to experience it together, and I think that you get. And I don't know. I have a pretty good sound system at home, but it doesn't sound as good as watching it in the theater.
I hope it gets in a lot of theaters because I guess they have an out date for the DVD, which is Blu-ray, which kind of is. I feel like the longer it stays in theaters. Like theaters like this art house, like real true theaters where people go because they really want to see the movie. The longer it does it, I think it's better because the people would be wanting maybe like, I got to get that movie. And then if it comes out too soon, they'll watch it. And you can't really get the true sound of the music and the ambience, as you know, it's the theater, the sound in here is like not like your television,
Right.
So,
but just the audience response as well, the way the audience amplifies the emotion and the excitement.
Together, you know what I mean? Like everybody kind of builds up an energy together. So I'm really hoping for a good theatrical run, a couple of nights here, there, whatever, just all over the place because I think it will do really well.
Yeah.
Well, it is this time around, it's being promoted the right way in terms of the authentic to the actual audience for the movie.
And the poster for the movie.
The poster is
looks like the movie.
Yeah, looks like the movie. And I think that's going to draw in the right people, the right audience for the film too. So that's promising.
Well, listen. Thank you both for coming, Robin, for coming and for joining us and really be able to sort of celebrate, your movie in a theater tonight. I know a bunch of the cast are going to be here. I'll have a camera. I'm going to get a few shots of that as well, and we'll add that to what we have here. But this is a wonderful movie that's being sort of rediscovered. You found it. Thank God you found it, and here we are. But it's playing it at Laemmle. It was just at IFC, and it's going to have, I think, probably a wonderful theatrical run in repertory and elsewhere, as it should.
And an opportunity to be appreciated by audiences.
Yeah, I just like to
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
the film was shot in L.A., That's the other thing. And to be able to show it like this now, 20 years later.
I know, right?
It's like a miracle.
And you premiered at Sunset 5. I mean, that's also such a cool thing.
Yeah.
So
awesome. This time I'm going to be at the screen.
That's because Radiohead.
Radiohead's on a tour.
Radiohead's not tonight.
X's, they have a night off. It's X.
Their last tour.
The film is Pray for Rock and Roll. Look for it on Kino Lorber, Kino Now, or at your local art house. And thank you, Robin. Thank you, Cheri. Thank you, Alex, for joining us Inside the Arthouse.
Thank you, guys. This was fun.
Today's episode was produced by Miles McCreary, Thomas Cassetta, Raphael Sparge, and on-site producer Norrin Dickerson. Edited by Miles McCreary with additional help from Gabriel Laemmle and sound mixed by Thomas Cassetta. Our theme music was composed by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Titles and graphics by Jenna DeAngelis. Find out more at InsideTheArthouse.com.